in the business world, and we would be at a very terrible place if we didn't have neurodiverse brains. So I created a slide with the gifts of these brains. And you can't just take a weakness and then, say the flip side of that is a strength, because there are strengths that are real nuggets.
Yeah.
So with the ADHD brain, they're visionaries, and they're highly sought after in the business world. They can see the big picture. They're good at developing programs. That's why as you go up the corporate ladder, you're going to have more and more ADHDers. And the gifts of autism is they have this exceptional attention to detail because they take in 30 to 50% more information. And they notice the details and the flow of those details.
Yeah.
And they're just gifted at tracking the patterns of those details.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's how they come up with things that no one else sees. There's a phrase called the devil's in the details,
Yes.
right? And so
Yes.
they're going to come into organizations and see things others don't see and come up with the solutions that everyone else was baffled by. ADHD brains, they're highly imaginative and resourceful. They're always coming up with new ideas, right? So you can imagine in a company that has lots of challenges and problem solving, you want someone who can come up with ways to address it. Or in a creative industry or any place in the business world that how that would be so important, right? They're also very socially intelligent because they have this intuitive understanding of the social world.
Mhm.
For the autistic brain, they tend to really thrive with hypersystematizing. They analyze and construct systems. They develop novel solutions. And I find, and I haven't seen this published, but I found it to be true very, very often, they have this intuitive understanding for how things work, like systems, how to do it more efficiently. And you can imagine in the business world, you need this. Inefficient processes cause waste and cost a lot of money. I had a client who worked as an engineering company, and they just, at a time when his company was downsizing, they created a position just for him because he was really good at cutting through what needed to be done.
Yeah.
That's one of the gifts of autism. ADDers tend to be highly flexible and adaptable. They're good at in crisis. They can see many sides of a situation, and maybe even all sides. So you can imagine if you do project management or run a department or many different things, any kind of project, how valuable that is. What a resource that is for wherever you're working. And then autistic clients, they have a higher capacity than the general population for routine and structure. They tend to be very precise,
Mm.
accurate, reliable, punctual. They have a strong internal motivation. They tend to be very independent thinkers. So this is what you need in companies. You want someone, especially in fields where the details really matter, like a doctor. I want someone who can be accurate and precise, right? Uh,
Definitely.
or engineering or computer science. There's some with that routine and structure or engineering. To be reliable, to get it right is just so crucial. And they tend to, with their stronger internal motivation, they tend to be very good at following through on things. They tend to be the whistleblowers sometimes. When you're in a group project, if everyone decides just to agree and not to say the thing that needs to be said, well, guess what? You might spend a year on your project, and because no one was addressing the real problem, you waste a year of time and money. You need someone when they sees it and says, well, even if it makes people mad, I'm going to say the thing because it's
Yes.
important.
Yes.
Right? So that's,
Yes.
companies want that. It's going to save them time and money and get better products. With ADHD, they tend to be very spontaneous, willing to take risks. I think you even mentioned that with the immigration experience. They tend to be highly empathetic, good at putting themselves in someone else's shoes, although, everyone's brain's different. They tend to be very good at leadership and teamwork and team building. So you can see how these are very valuable qualities for the business world. For the autistic side, they tend to have very good, like, rote memory, recalling information. So you can see if you're a doctor, how helpful that would be. If you're a lawyer, to be able to retain and, collect knowledge like an encyclopedia that you can access. That tends to be very valuable capital professionally. They tend to be experts in the field. They have very rational, logical decision-making abilities, which is important
Yeah.
for so many things. As you're making decisions, you want to go through it, not just make an impulsive decision. You want to spend time and analyze all the details. They have a strength in individual activities, sports, and games. Sometimes it tends to be a preference. And both of these brains tend to be innovative, out of the box thinkers, creative problem solving, intuitive. They track the patterns and trends. So you can see why we have so many. I want to say we even have a higher percentage of neurodivergent folks in
Yeah.
the business world who are highly successful and sought after. They tend to share interests and passions, hyper focus and hyper fixation. There's a guy who is hyper focusing on the plane from the US to Japan. And on that plane, hyper focusing, he wrote a best selling book. They tend to be very honest, loyal, and genuine. They tend to be very hardworking. They're good at very, persevering to work through things. So these are the reasons they succeed at work and do well. And these are the things that when you work on yourself, whether it's in therapy or maybe doing some self discovery with books, you can uncover the nuggets of your talent and then
Wow.
play to your strengths.
Wow. I love how you shared that. Thank you so
You're
much.
so welcome.
I remember when I was a little girl and I was GT. And I remember thinking, man, why is it so easy for me to get this concept and I can apply it in anything else? And I
Yeah,
was in elementary and thinking, don't they see it? Like, it's just
I
so
don't
easy.
see it.
I don't get it. Yeah. And even with my program with people pleasing, I got the stages of change model and I was using the concept and I moved it to the people pleasing model for stages of change and stages of grief and how to move forward and how to move back. And it's beautiful. And that's something that I've always known when I was a little girl. And I wondered why can't they get it?
Divergent
So
thinking within, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And I thought, "Oh, it's because 'cause I'm GT," right? And the other thing is this, I remember, like, let's say I go to the gym or in high school even, there's little cliques and everything. And they're like, "Oh, we were waiting for you because we didn't want you to feel left out," or even at the gym, "Oh, I'll go with you." And I'm thinking, "You don't need to go with me, like, I'm so fine going alone." Like, it just doesn't phase me going alone. I'm good at being alone at things, and it just dawns on me why other people need to have somebody to go with them places, and I love my alone time. I love
Me too.
I didn't know that was a neurodivergent thing, and so I love how you shared the autism because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have those traits," and just attribute it again, GT but these are the strengths, so
Well,
nobody
there's a
says
higher
anything.
percentage of neurodivergence
Yeah.
with the gift of kids. You ask any school teacher.
Oh, oh, wow. Yeah,
And then there's one more thing for you,
yeah, tell
Anita,
me.
on understanding your brain. So I know you know about autism and ADHD. So sometimes I'll go through the different features of them. This one is the one I want to show you, which I think you'd appreciate. So odd ADHD is autism plus ADHD. So that's
Mhm.
a person who has both. And they share the gifts of both ADD and autism. They tend to be guided by their vision and can zoom out, but they tend to default to the details and be very detail oriented. Good at taking all the patterns and coming up with solutions, like systematizing. So it can be a wonderful combo to see the devil in the details so you can get the real problem, but
Yeah.
then also see the big picture and how to move towards.
Yeah.
Now they also, because they have, both aspects of both ADD and autism, they tend to share struggles with both of those brains as well, because our strengths are the flip side of our weaknesses. The weakness are the flip side of the strength. So with autistic brains, they tend to struggle more with flexibility and planning and metacognition, which is seeing the big picture. With ADHDers, the defining struggle is response inhibition.
Mm,
When you have both, you don't have metacognition as one of the struggles anymore because you see the vision and the big picture, but the flexibility and planning struggles are there. And then response inhibition becomes one of the struggles, needing to slow down and not make decisions impulsively, right?
yeah.
But the flip side is sometimes we just have to jump in and figure it out.
Yeah.
That can be a strength. And so they can face more challenges than, just having one or the other. Although I don't think it's very common to just only have one or the other. Mostly it's kind of mixed.
Got it.
because they have the challenges of both brains with the strengths of both brains, right? And some of the traits can balance and conflict with one another. You might love being punctual, but have trouble being on time.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So I have to make sure I have to set timers and I have to set little places so that I could know this timer is for this and I have to be here. This timer is for this and I have to be here. And this timer is for this and I have to be
Mhm.
here to keep myself accountable.
Yeah. Or, because of the more consistency with autism, it might balance out the response into mission might be a little less. Right, so they can kind of blend in a way that's helpful or feel like there's a little bit of internal conflict.
It is. It is.
Sometimes the special interests, they can change more rapidly due to ADHD, maybe every few months,
Okay.
but the intensity level might be similar to autism, which tends to be a little more intense than the ADHD hyperfocus. And then when you're not focusing on the special interests, ADHD might become more evident. So I don't know if that's helpful to you.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
When I love certain things like the people pleasing, but I also like other
Mhm.
things. And I know that, like, for me, reading fantasy books, and I do not touch it because if I get into that world and then I obsess over it and I go and I go and I go, and my husband's my accountability partner. He's like, "Are you okay? You've been on this, and remember we have to do that." And I'm just like, nothing exists until I'm done with this,
That's so
you know. And it's just like, oh, it's difficult. I remember telling my doctor, like, "The medication, I don't know if I need more or what, but I just had a mini relapse with this book," and I was just like, "Ugh." So, yes, it has its downfalls, but for the most part, when I'm aware of it and I manage it, I'm able to function so well, and that's okay. You learn. I was telling my doctor, now I know that when I'm gonna listen to a show, I have to look how many episodes they're at so that way I can gauge the time I have to see it and plan how I'm going to see it, because if not, if I don't do that, that's it. Nothing else is gonna exist in the world.
Well, if you learn about your brain,
Yeah.
what happens is your brain setup becomes more of a gift challenge
Yeah.
because you can make choices. You learn how to manage, the things that are hard and how to work with them and get support when you need.
Yeah.
But then you have these gifts, which are quite remarkable. And you can really learn to play for your strengths. I know I got promoted often in the business world. And the reason I did so well was because of ADHD.
Wow. And thanks for sharing because now I know the things that I have are gifts